Hi, thanks for joining me today. It's Geraldine from the Paper Puffin Studio, and today I'm going to show you how to make this card and coordinating gift box. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Now let's get started. Now let's review all the pieces you'll need to make the card for this coordinating set. So to start, you're going to need your base color of cardstock, measuring 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. You'll need a piece of designer series paper, which is 4 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8 inches. You'll need a piece of white cardstock for the inside, and that measures 4 1/8 inches by 5 3/8 inches. I've also cut a decorative strip to place on the inside, and this piece measures 5/8 of an inch by 4 1/8 inches. I went ahead and stamped the sentiment that I want to use for the front of this card. And when I stamped it, I cut it out using this die, which is a stitched shape framelit square from the set stitched shape framelets. Now, if you don't have this actually measures 2 5/8 inches by 2 5/8 inches. So you could just cut your white paper to size. Then I've cut out the coordinating cardstock at 2 3/4 by 2 3/4, and then another coordinating cardstock at 2 7/8 by 2 7/8. Placing my cardstock with the 8.5 inch edge at the top of my trimmer, I'm going to go ahead and score it at 4 1/4, right down the center. I'll then fold and burnish so that we have the card ready to go. I'll now attach the designer series paper to the front of the card. I've got the designer series paper attached to the front. Now I'm going to get the inside prepared. So I have this decorative strip, which I'm going to be gluing to the bottom of this piece of white, and then the piece of white will go on the inside flap here inside the card. Now with the designer series paper on the front, the white paper and the decorative strip at the bottom, now I'm going to attach the sentiment to these mats and attach this to the front. I also went ahead and cut out a couple of these butterflies from the paper that I'm using. The paper that I'm using is called Mosaic Mood, and it's a retired Stampin' Up! Paper. And then I'm also going to be embellishing with some of these enamel dots. And so here's the finished card. You can see I placed some enamel dots here on the sentiment, and I used dimensionals to lift up these two butterflies as well as lift up the frame at the front. And on the inside it looks like this. To build this box, you're going to need a piece of your base color cardstock measuring 9 inches by 8.5 inches. You'll need 2 pieces of a coordinating cardstock, each measuring 2 1/8 of an inch by 5 3/8 inches. You'll need 2 pieces of designer series paper, each measuring 2 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And try to have it so that your designer series paper are cut so that they line up with each other. I've also gone ahead and cut out a circle using the stitched shape circle die, and I've fussy cut a butterfly from the designer series paper. Now we're ready to do some scoring. So with the 8.5 inch edge at the top of my trimmer, I'm going to line it up at 3/4 of an inch and score. And then slide it over to 1.5 inches and score again. I'll flip the paper over, and now I'll do the exact same thing. So scoring at 3/4 of an inch and 1.5 inches. Now placing the 9-inch edge across the top of the trimmer, I'm now going to start scoring this side. So it's going to be at 2 1/4 inches. Slide it over and score again at 3 inches. Slide it over to 5 1/4 and score again. Then at 6 inches. And then finally at 8 1/4 inch. Now that all of that scoring is done, I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish all of these edges, and I'll speed that part up for you. Now we're ready to do the cutting for this box. So I'm going to, starting at this edge here, which is the 8 1/2 inch edge. Also, you'll notice that I have a score line here. I'm starting at this end and not at the opposite end, which has the shorter score line. Okay, so starting down here, I'm going to go ahead and cut up to the first horizontal score line. I'm going to cut this portion away on each side. And then I'm going to cut away this little square on the edge. I'm going to cut in here because I want these to be the flaps. So you can see those will be flaps. And now I'm going to go ahead and start working on this part. So cutting in, like so. Move that part out of the way and cut off this little square. Same on the other side. Okay, so now I've got a tab and a tab here and here as well. Now I'm going to cut away these portions on either side. So let's turn my paper around, cut that portion off. And that portion off. So this is the template that we have. I'm now going to miter the tabs and these outside flaps. So to do that, I'll just move the flap up out of the way and I'll miter the tabs. Just helps for things to go together nicely. I'll do that for each of the small tabs, and then on this outer flap that will get folded in after. I'll do the same thing on the other side. I move this part up out of the way, miter the sides, and then for this portion I just miter the outside flap. So now this is all ready. The only thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to round the corners of these two portions here, and then we'll pick up there. Now I'm ready to take this portion of Designer Series paper attached to the coordinating cardstock, and I'm going to glue this down to this flap of the box. Note that this portion is the portion that has the top flap with the rounded edges. So I'm going to be attaching this here like so. I have not attached these two pieces together yet because I need to do a little bit of cutting before they're ready to be attached to the box. I'll go ahead and attach this piece. Now with the box template sitting in this orientation, I've attached the Designer Series paper and its coordinating mat to this flap. I'm now working on the other flap. I want to make a little mark using my pencil at 2 1/4 inches. So I'll line this up with my ruler and make a mark at 2 1/4 inches. Now I'm ready to cut away a portion here and a portion here so I get that triangular flap on the front. I'm ready now to cut away that piece. So again, I have the tiny little pencil mark here, and I'm going to line up this edge of the flap and this pencil mark with the groove of my paper trimmer. I'll just tuck away this little flap so I don't cut it off. So this piece I'm not going to be using. And now I'm going to do the same thing, but in the other direction. So taking the little pencil mark as my guide and lining it up with the corner of this flap, tucking these pieces away so that I don't accidentally cut those. I'm going to go ahead and line up and cut that. At this point now you can see that I have that triangular flap that I want. Now to prepare the decorative piece for the front, I've got the coordinating cardstock that's going to end up on this front triangular flap. So I'm going to have to mark again at 2 1/4 inches with my pencil and my ruler and cut away the extra pieces. I'll do the same thing with this piece of Designer Series paper. Note that I'm orienting it so that it lines up with the pattern, and I'm going to be making my mark at 2 1/4 inch from this edge. So I've made a mark at 2 1/4 inches on the piece of cardstock, and I've also made a mark at 2 1/4 inches on the Designer Series paper. I'm now going to line these up in my trimmer and cut away the pieces. So lining it up with this point here and the pencil mark, I'll do that for the cardstock and again on the other side. And then I'll do the same thing for the Designer Series paper, lining up the corner with the pencil mark that I made at 2 1/4 inches. And then again from the pencil mark to this corner. Now I'm ready to attach these two pieces together and attach this to the front panel, like so. Now I've glued down that portion to the front flap and I'm ready to assemble the box. You'll notice that I already have some tear and tape attached to these flaps. So with the template or box oriented like this, I've got some tear and tape on each of these flaps. You could use Tombow glue here as well. I've taken the backing off of the tear and tape and now I'm ready to assemble the box. It will go together so that these flaps tuck in here and attach to the side flaps like so. And I'll do that for each one of those small flaps. Now the next part is I have to attach here to the inside. So I want to be able to fold that over and glue those down. I find that Tombow glue works best here and here. So I'll go ahead and do that and pick up there. So the Tombow glue is on the inside of those flaps. I'm now ready to fold those over and hold them in place so that they adhere and attach. Now, when putting the box together, the final part is that we have to put the little circle here and the butterfly, and then attach a piece of Velcro. So I'm going to be attaching this circle, which we cut out earlier, to the front here, and I'll attach the butterfly using a dimensional. Underneath, I need to attach some Velcro. Now, just to show you how I deal with this Velcro dot, I'm going to take 1/2 of the piece of Velcro. It has adhesive on the other side. I'm going to attach it to the piece that it goes with, which also has adhesive on the other side. I'm now ready to put this Velcro dot on the inside of this triangular flap. So I'm going to place it just right about there. Now when I close the box, this piece of Velcro underneath will attach to this front piece. And so the box is now closed. So now when I open it, the two pieces of Velcro will come apart. One will be left here and one here, so that we can close the box like so. So the last piece now is to attach the little circle die that we cut out and the little butterfly. The circle die will get attached using glue dots, and then I'll attach this butterfly using a dimensional. Here is the finished set with the card and the coordinating box. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.